Great. So again, welcome everyone. My name is Jamila, and we're excited to have you here today. We have a small enough group where we're going to go around the Zoom room and just introduce ourselves. So you can share your name with us, and if you're representing a particular organization, we'd love to hear that too. So I'm going to start with my colleagues here, and then we'll go to our grant writing team, and then we'll pass it to all of you. Let's go ahead and pass it over to Manny.
Hi, welcome everybody. I'm Manny Benitez. I'm the Administrative Services Associate with the Office of Equity, and I will pass it on to Gary.
Hey, good morning, or I guess good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gary Besser. I'm a project manager with the Office of Equity, and I'll pass it over to Erica.
Hello, my name is Erica McWhorter. I'm one of the grant writers. It's good to see all of you today. How about Daniel?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daniel Cooper. I'm one of the grant writers as well. Good to see you all. And I'll pass it to Elijah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elijah Merman. I'm also one of the grant writers on the project. It's great to meet all of you too. And I'm going to pass it to Melissa.
Hello, everybody. My name is Melissa James, and I'm also on the grant writing team for the PB Marin project. Let's see. I think all of us have gone, so I will pass it over to a community member. Let's go with Monica.
Hello, I'm Monica Julian. I'm the Executive Director for Vital Immigrant Defense Advocacy and Services, better known as VIDAS.
Great, and let's go over next to Leon. And Leon, you're on mute.
Thank you. I'm Leon Hunting. I'm a volunteer fundraising side for the Marin History Museum.
Great, thanks, Leon. Let's go to Elaine.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks for hosting. I am Elaine Wilkinson, and I am Marin County's Emergency Preparedness Coordinator.
Wonderful. Let's pass it over to Monica. Oh, Monica, I think you went already. Did you go? Yeah. Okay, let's go to Angela.
Hi there, my name is Angela Barron. I'm with the Petaluma Health Center, and we also have health centers in Point Reyes and Bolinas.
Great, welcome, Angela. Let's pass it over to Nan.
Hi, I'm Nan Zimmerman. I represent Marin Humane, and I'm their grant officer.
Great, thanks for being here, Nan. Let's pass it to Amber.
Hi there, I'm Amber Driscoll. I'm the development director with Extra Food. We're a food rescue and meal making nonprofit based in Marin.
Great to have you, Amber. Maria.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maria Jaramillo Botero. I work at North Marin Community Services as the co-director of Latino programs.
Great, welcome, Maria. Let's pass it to Phoebe.
Hello, I'm Phoebe Smith, she, her pronouns. I am an independent contractor, restorative practices practitioner, and certified professional mediator. And I also do trainings for youth in Marin. And I will. Oh, you can go. You can.
I'll pass it on. Yeah, thanks so much, Phoebe. Welcome. Let's go to Kristen.
Hello, my name is Kristen. I live in Sausalito, and I'm a volunteer consultant working with some nonprofits in Marin City. And today I'm here with Tijuana, who just hopped on, and I will let Tijuana introduce herself, if I may pass it on.
Absolutely. We saw you last night, didn't we, Kristen?
Yes, I'm back again. It was so good.
It was so good. You hear that, folks? Let's go to Tijuana. Oh, and Tijuana, you're on mute.
Hi, I'm Tijuana Bullock with the founder of Hope Housing of Marin, and I would like to pass it to Eric.
Hello, I'm Eric Avery, producing artistic director of Alter Theater. We work out of San Rafael and tour around Marin County and other parts. Thank you.
Eric, I didn't catch your organization. Did you say that? I didn't quite hear you.
Alter Theater.
Alter Theater. Great. Thanks for coming, Eric. Let's go on and pass it to Yanina.
Greetings, my name is Yanina. I'm from Fairfax, and I'm a founder of volunteer organization USA Supports UA, representing Ukrainians in Marin.
Welcome, Yanina. Thanks for being here. Kara.
Hi, my name is Kara Wozlewski. I am the government grant writer for Huckleberry Youth Programs.
Great. Welcome, Kara. Let's go to Brooke.
Everyone, I'm Brooke Burns, and I am the consultant, a consultant providing interim fundraising support for Marin Foster Care Association.
Great. Welcome. Let's see here. Janice?
Hi, yes, I'm Janice Mapes. I'm representing First Missionary Baptist Church in Marin City.
Welcome. Samantha?
Hi, everyone. My name's Samantha. My pronouns are she, her, ella. Hi, Phoebe. I am here on behalf of West Marin Fund, a local community foundation serving all of West Marin, and I'm the manager for organizational initiatives. Thanks.
All right. Good to have you, Samantha. And last but not least, we have Ms. Locks in the house.
Thank you, Jamila. I'm part of the REAP team, racial equity. Oh, I forget what it's all about. But anyway, and I'm also a commissioner on the Commission for Aging, and I'm here to learn about grant writing.
All right. And then I see we have Julia just joined us. Julia, could you please just introduce yourself, maybe your name and organization?
Hi, I'm Julia Van Solen Kim. I'm with UC Cooperative Extension. And also help co-facilitate the Marin Key Policy Council, and just here to continue learning more about participatory budgeting.
Right. So we have a full house here today. We really appreciate you all taking some time out of your day to be with us. We are recording this conversation. It will be posted on our website for those who are unable to be with us here today. We want this to be a space where, you all get your questions answered and we share a little bit more about what this participatory budgeting process is all about. And so I encourage you to use the chat as you would like, and we'll have some designated times in our presentation where we can take questions, okay? So with that, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. All righty. So again, as I mentioned, my name is Jamila, and really appreciate you all being with us today. We wanted to really walk you through, one, what is participatory budgeting? We call it PB for short. We know it's kind of a mouthful, and so you'll hear me say participatory budgeting or PB as we move through our conversation today. We really want to share an overview of both the stage 1 and stage 2 grant applications with you all. And then we know lots of people have questions about the voting process, so we'll get into that at that point in time in our conversation. And then we'll wrap it up with what's coming next in the process. So that's what we have in store for you all today. This is our small but mighty County Office of Equity. It includes myself, my colleagues Manny and Gary as well. And our mission in the Office of Equity is really to establish the county as an anti-racist and multicultural workforce. We're committed to accountability, to community engagement, and transformational change. And that community engagement portion of our mission statement is one that really aligns well with what participatory budgeting is all about. It's about engaging the community, getting folks excited to participate in civic dialogue and civic conversations, and really making their voices heard. So what is PB? For us, we define it as a democratic process in which community members really decide how to spend part of a public budget. So it's placing power directly in the hands of community members to decide where money should go. And so this is what's really exciting to us about the PB process. And it's something that got started back in 1989 in a community called Porto Alegre in Brazil. So it's an international process is when it started, and now it's spread throughout the world and here in the United States as well. So we have communities, big and small, of all different scales that have done PB processes, like Chicago and New York, for example. We have communities in the South, like Durham, North Carolina, and Greensboro, South Carolina. Communities like Grand Rapids, Michigan, for example. And then also our neighbors here in the Bay Area, such as Oakland and Vallejo. Vallejo is actually in their 7th PB cycle. So we've learned a lot from their experiences. And this is the first time that we're ever doing something like this here in Marin County. So we're really excited that we're on the precipice of some innovation and creativity when it comes to how do we engage our communities. So we have a brief video that we're going to show you in just a moment, and it really just tells a little bit about how PB is being used across the country. So I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Manny to play this video up for us. So thanks so much for listening to that video, everyone. I'm curious if anything resonated with you from what you learned there, what you heard, what came up for you as you were watching that video.
I kind of, if I can just jump in, it really speaks to me when I think about the work that I do and like the communities that we're trying to reach, and it's always stopped because there's not enough funding. And I think about the most vulnerable people in our community and how we can really support them and push things through this way, which I think if you ask your average person on the street, like, does this matter to you? They would say yes, right? Because this is about people's safety and well-being. So I just think this is an amazing process, and thank you for bringing it to Marin County and getting us all involved.
Yes, thank you so much, Elaine. Appreciate that enthusiasm there. Let's go to Leon. And Leon, you're on mute.
I'll get it. Thank you. I like the democratic approach. I think it's good. My only concern, I think, at this point is how do you select the voting box locations? Because that tells a lot about how where the votes are going.
Yeah, thanks for that, Leon. So we're going to cover voting in our presentation here, but we're going to hold that for now, but we'll certainly come back to it. Great question. Let's go to Kara.
Hi, so we have a variety of programs for youth in Marin County, and specifically in San Rafael. We fit a lot of the categories. One of the questions that came up is the program that we need has the biggest gap in our funding, that needs the most help, and this would be great, might not get as many votes as a project that is more well-funded. And so so the question becomes, like, do we go with, do we just go with the project that we think is going to get the most votes per se?
Yeah, great question. So again, we're coming back to the voting piece there. Lots of people have questions on that. So we're going to cover that in just a moment there. Great question. Let's hold that for a moment. Anybody else? How did the video resonate with you? What came up for you? What did it spark? Amber, what about you? I see you look like you're ready to share.
I think it's great. It's exciting, and I'm excited to see how it plays out in Marin and in the different sort of neighborhoods and how people actually participate in the process. One question, which might be covered later, I imagine, kind of related to Kara's question, was around new projects, sort of brand new, hasn't been implemented yet, versus the funding of ongoing projects and programs throughout the county that may not be brand new and may not be as exciting to people.
Right, may be brand new, may not be quite as resonant with community members who are voting, so good things to think about. So let's jump into the rest of the presentation here, everybody, and we'll be sure to cover some of those questions that you brought up. So one of the next things that we want to talk to you about is, why are we doing PB here in Marin County? What are our goals in this work? Kara, did you have another question? I see your hand still up. Did you? Okay, I'm gonna drop your hand down there. Just want to make sure we didn't miss anything from you. So why are we doing this here in Marin County? So we are the Office of Equity, so we're leading this effort here, and so we definitely wanted it to be rooted in our equity goals and principles that we have, that we try to live and embody throughout our county work here. And so one is to improve the county, to make this a better place to live, work, play, and pray. We also want to expand ways that people participate in civic discussion. People increase the way they engage in civic conversations. And we also want to hear from new voices, new perspectives, not from just the usual folks who come to the board meetings or who make their voices heard in other ways, but for people that we don't traditionally hear from in civic dialogue. So we're looking at particularly youth seniors, communities of color, lower income communities, people with disabilities, for example. So we want to definitely increase and develop the capacity of new leaders to participate. And in addition to that, everyone, it's a way for community members to decide how they want to spend money. What should be spent using our public dollars? Are there needs that our elected officials, for example, may not understand, may not represent? And community members may have some very strong perspectives on how to spend money to address those needs. So it's a way for people to have an entry into these civic conversations, which we think is really important. So we have up to $2.5 million available for this process, and this is funded through a federal grant called the American Rescue Plan Act, also known as ARPA. And so 2.5 million is quite a lot for a participatory budgeting process. I mentioned to you that our colleagues in New York and Chicago, they've all launched PB initiatives. They're working with, say, $1 million, and that's New York City, right? That's Chicago. So we have, not even close to the size of the population that they have, not even close to the needs that they have. But we're swinging big here because we think that this is really an important way for us to increase civic participation in conversations such as this. So $2.5 million is what's available. And we're going to prioritize communities that are under 70 on the Healthy Places Index. And for those who are unaware of what that is, it's basically a data set, and it looks across a range of indicators, including health, so a number of different health indicators, such as the existence of comorbidities, for example. It looks at wealth, so we're looking at median income, we're looking at jobs availability in the area, we're looking at minimum wage status. We're also looking at things like education. So graduation rates is really key here. Incarceration rates is another indicator. We're looking at the quality of the environment, so the quality of one's water, the quality of one's air. So it's looking across a lot of different factors that influence whether or not a community is quote unquote healthy. And so what we found is that here in Marin County, we have a number of communities that are under 70 on that index. And they include communities such as the Canal, parts of San Rafael, parts of Novato, parts of West Marin, as well as Marin City. So we're going to be honing in on those communities. We're prioritizing those communities for our PB effort because we really want to invest this money where the needs are the greatest, where the disparities are the greatest. It's not to say that you can't propose a project anywhere in Marin County. So you can propose one in Tiburon, you can propose one in Fairfax, wherever you want, but we will be allotting some additional scoring points to projects that are within these communities. So we have a 5-phase process, everyone, for how we're doing PB here in Marin County. The first phase is all about brainstorming ideas, right? So I'm going to talk to you in just a moment about all the ideas that we gathered from community members. And then another part of it is around developing and refining proposals. And so that's a really key part of our process. And I'm going to use the phrases proposals and applications somewhat interchangeably as we go through our discussion here today. And then from there, it's about voting and so on. But today, I'm really going to focus in on one particular part, and that's really the defining, developing and refining proposals piece. So we started off our process brainstorming ideas. And the question that we put to community members was, what would you do with $2.5 million to advance racial equity in Marin County? What would you do with this money to improve your community? How would you spend this money to really make your community a better place to live that is more equitable, right? So those are the questions that we put to community members. And it was so exciting to hear the variety of responses that we got. So we were making sure that we were on the ground, so to speak, meaning we were at grocery stores, we're at libraries, community centers, soccer fields, asking people these questions across the county, right? We were at farmers markets, community fairs, you name it. So we were in person asking people these questions. And then we also developed an online tool so people could share their ideas with us to those questions from the comfort of their living room or maybe from their cell phone while they were traveling home on the bus, for example. So we wanted to do both in-person and online outreach for this. And I tell you, it was so exciting to see all of the responses that we got. So I want to show you this tool for just a moment here. I'm going to bring up another screen so that you all can see. And meanwhile, my colleague Manny is putting in a number of links in the chat that you all can follow along with us through those if you'd like. But this, I hope you're seeing the screen here where this is our online tool. And it's available in Vietnamese, in Spanish, as well as English. And so you see here, we have a map of all of those communities that I mentioned, those target communities. And then on the right-hand side, you have all of the ideas that we got from community members. So if you scroll down, you can just see, whoa, there's a lot of ideas. So we got hundreds of ideas from folks. And then people were able to like the ideas that they received. So very much like Facebook, where you can like something, and that indicates some support that you may have for it. And so we heard ideas such as more bike lanes, right? People talked about improving transportation in West County, an indigenous healing center. People mentioned more affordable housing as being really important. Some facilities like community pools and school gardens being really important to people. Outdoor recreational gyms for older adults and people with disabilities. We heard about housing for teachers, for example, being another one that was important to people. Translation services. How can people really be a part of a conversation if it's not in their native language? So can we provide translation services was mentioned. People also talked about financial literacy being something that's really key and really important as we think about home ownership, right? So that was another one. Increasing the living wage ordinance came up as another idea. And then a lot of ideas around programs for youth. So arts, culture, music, sports, things like that were really important. But really, it was all across the board, okay? So I encourage you to go to this tool if you haven't already and just take a look at what some of your fellow community members think are important in terms of how do we advance equity in this county. Okay, and so if you go, you can kind of see, I'm going to show you one specific example here. Let me see, let's pick one. Let's pick this Latino Community Health House. So this is one where they were able not only to say the idea, but to actually indicate where they wanted to see the idea in the community, right? So this is in the Canal area, for example. And they say that the purpose of this project is to create a health office to provide access and health resources to the Latino community and really have an equitable recovery for everyone. And then they also included a couple of photos here, as you can see, to help bring their idea to life of what they think this Latino community health house could do. And as you can see here, people were able to like the idea. So if I click that heart, that would indicate my support. I'm saying, oh, wow, I think that's a great idea. I could also add a comment if I wanted to. So we can scroll down and we can see what are some of the comments that people mentioned. So for example, they said, be sure to include services for older adults, right? They said, let's see here, you should consider expanding your organization to other areas to focus on issues like gang activity. They talked about, let's see, this project is very good and I would support it, somebody writes here. So you can see the whole range of feedback. I want to be really clear in saying that just because an idea was liked, quote unquote, that's not a vote, right? So we're not anywhere close to the voting stage right now. So it was just a way for us to see which ideas were rising to the top, okay? Which ideas were really resonating with people. So I encourage you to check out this tool if you haven't seen it already, and you can learn a lot more about what some of your colleagues and friends and neighbors think about the importance of some of these community suggestions. All right, so I'm going to bring us back to our show here. So as I mentioned, everyone, we received really hundreds of ideas from community members. This number is actually outdated. I think since then, we've gotten at least maybe 250 ideas at this point, and over 3,000 likes of these ideas from across the county, okay? And, you know, for example, people talked about, you know, in the Canal, education and housing were really some of the top categories that were important to people. In West Marin, it was more so about transit and transportation being a really important category for where a lot of the ideas were coming from. In Marin City, it tended to be a little bit more about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, as well as arts and culture, having a real sense of identity within that community. So we heard a lot of ideas from people, and it was really beautiful to see people come together and share what are their own ideas. We really value community members as the experts of their own neighborhood. So no one needs to come in and tell you what you need, but instead you're saying, this is the need, and here's my suggestion on how do we address it. So that's really the power of PB in our minds. And so now I want to talk to you a little bit about an overview of how do you apply? How do you turn that idea into an actual grant application? right? So that's what we want to focus in on here today. So I'm going to talk to you about both stage 1 and stage 2. So we have grants of $10,000 to $250,000 available for community members to take advantage of and turn their idea into something real. And one of the important things to note is that in order to receive a grant from this process, you either have to be in partnership with a 501c3 or a 501c6. So that's basically a nonprofit organization. So you can be a nonprofit yourself if you're the lead on the project, or let's say you're just a typical community member, you can partner with a nonprofit and they would be your partners in this. And let's say, for example, you can't find a nonprofit partner. You don't know who you might want to work with. Well, we recommend then that you get a fiscal sponsor, okay? And that's that's an organization that basically just handles the financial side of the house for you or with you. And so for a lot of people, we know that term fiscal sponsorship is a little bit confusing. It's a little bit mystifying for many of us. And so we wanted to take the guesswork out of it. And so we've already identified fiscal sponsors for people. So if you don't have one yet, I would encourage you to reach out to Marin Link. They are our de facto fiscal sponsor for this process. Another potential fiscal sponsor, if you wanted to consider them, is the Center for Volunteer and Nonprofit Leadership. And I'm going to show you in a moment our website, which has all of the ways that you can connect with these folks, okay? But it's really important that you, if you haven't already, that you start thinking about who your fiscal sponsor would be or who your nonprofit partner would be, okay? We're going to say a little bit more about that in just a moment. In addition to that, everybody, we also have a team of grant writers. You heard from them just a moment ago, and they're providing free assistance to people to help put together some really strong applications. Now, they're not going to write it for you, but they can support you in developing really clear, complete, and compelling applications. And you might be wondering, and some of you already raised this a moment ago, is how will we be evaluating these applications? And so for us, we're looking at a few different points of criteria. One is around the need. Is there a demonstrated need for this project? Is it something that community members have voiced as this is something that needs to be addressed? Can you demonstrate that need, right? That's something really important. Another one is feasibility. Is this project possible? Is it realistic? Is it feasible within our 2-year time frame? So the grants are available for up to 2 years, okay? And so is it doable within that 2-year time frame? Or what can you accomplish within that 2-year time frame? And then is it feasible in terms of the money that you're requesting? So if you have a $2 million project and you're requesting $10,000, well, how are you going to fill that gap, right? That's something that we're really looking at is can you do it with the money that you would be getting through the PB grant? And then the last point to mention here, everybody, is impact. We're really focused on outcomes for this project, for this whole process. So what will be the results of your work from 2 years later and a $250,000 grant? What will you have accomplished? What are the outcomes? So those are the 3 things that we're really looking closely at. And I'm going to share a little bit more about how we're evaluating in just a minute, but I wanted to kind of put that in your minds really early in our presentation in case that's helpful for you. All right, so next up here, everybody. So I want to make sure that you all are really clear on the deadlines. So we have a stage 1 application, and this one is very brief, okay? It's primarily multiple choice, and it's our way of really getting a sense of what it is your project is about and how, more importantly, we can best support you, right? So for example, if we see that we get maybe 5 stage 1 applications and they're all talking about bike lanes in Novato, hypothetically, right? So we might say, wow, we're going to connect those 5 individuals and you all can think about whether you want to partner. So instead of competing for these dollars, you might work together. So we're prioritizing collaboration through this process as well. So that's one reason to have a stage 1 application. It also lets us know what support you might need from our grant writers as well. So we encourage you to submit early, everyone. Our deadline is May 10th, so we're right around the corner from when stage 1 is due. We're doing it on a rolling basis Okay, so that basically means that as you turn it in, we're looking at them. So it's very much like a college application rolling basis. So the sooner you get it in, the sooner you get a response from us that lets you know that you can move on to stage 2. Okay, so May 10th is the deadline. I think we're about 6 days out from there. So we encourage you to get on that if you haven't already. The next part of the process is the stage 2 application. And this one is more detailed, okay? We have more questions in there and more things for you to think about. And so that deadline is May 31st. So the end of the month, okay? That's what we're looking at here. And all of this information, everyone, is available on our website at pb.marincounty.org. And in a moment, I'm going to take you to the website just so we can walk you through where all of this stuff lives, okay? And so basically, there are a few key items for you to keep in mind here. And all of it is on the website, as I mentioned. One of them is that we have a rule book that we put together. It's called the PB Rule Book. And it tells you everything you might ever want to know about our PB process. So I encourage you, if you haven't already, to take a look at it. It likely would answer most of, if not all of the questions that you have. Of course, you can always reach out to us, but it's just a great way to get a deeper understanding of the ins and outs of our PB Marin process. In addition, the website has our stage 1 application and stage 2 application. And you'll notice that for stage 2, once you get there, we're asking you to create a budget, right, with line items as to how you're going to use this money. So there's a budget template that you need to use. We also have a timeline template, and you can think of it as a timeline or a work plan, right? And it lets us know what you plan to do in each phase of your project, right? So that's another really key part of the stage 2 application.
Jamila, Jamila,
yes.
we're not seeing your PB webpage.
Oh, we're not? Oh, thanks, Manny. Let me take us there. We weren't going to go to the webpage yet. We were going to go to, well, we can go there now. Thanks, Manny. Were you seeing the PowerPoint though, Manny? Oh, okay, great. Yes, no problem. So yeah, why don't we go to the website now? Let's take a look at it. All right, everyone. So this is our PB webpage, and has some great introductory information for you. It has some info on our workshop, which you all are here today. And in addition to that, it has everything you need to know about our application process. So I'm right here in the what you need to know section, okay? And then, for example, we have the stage 1 application that I just mentioned to you. So if you haven't done this already, you would just go here and click on that, and it would take you to the application. And then we also have the stage 2 application here in this box where my cursor is. And so once you pass stage 1, everyone, we'll send you an email, and it'll include a link and a passcode to how you get to the online version of stage 2. But let's say you're curious before you get to that stage, and you want to know, well, what is stage 2 application? What does it look like? What are the questions that they're asking about? So you would just simply click this icon here, this button here, and it'll take you to a downloadable Word version of the application. So you're able to see all of the questions that we're asking about. So you might want to look at that before you do stage 1, if you haven't already, just to see if it's something that you'll have the time and the bandwidth to complete, okay? Just to see what types of questions are we asking in stage 2. And then from there, everybody, if you scroll down a little bit more, there's all of these resources here, as you can see, application resources. And on the left, it has the PB rulebook that I mentioned to you just a moment ago. It also has some application tips in here. So we don't want to make this confusing for you, or we're not trying to do anything other than be transparent with how you can create the best application. Okay, so we have a lot of tips in there for you. It also has information on how we'll be evaluating your proposals. And then how do you find a fiscal sponsor, right? So all of that information that I just talked to you about, you can find more detail here. And then when you're ready to go to your stage 2 application, you can find your budget template and your timeline template right here, okay? In addition to that, everybody, let's say you're working with a lot of partners, and what we request is that you complete this partnership letter template. And it basically is a way for all of the partners who are involved in your project to say, yes, I'm signed on to this. I'm committed to this, and you can count me in as a partner who's going to be working on implementation. Okay, so that's something that we're going to be looking for. And let's say that you don't have a nonprofit partner, you would need a fiscal sponsor, as I mentioned to you. And so you would just have to complete this brief template here. And it's basically your fiscal sponsor signing off and saying, yes, I am this person's fiscal sponsor for this project. Okay, so these are things that you would need to upload into your online stage 2 application once you get there. In addition to that, everybody, if you keep scrolling down, you'll find this section here on grant writer assistance. And so, as I mentioned, we want to support you in bringing your idea to life. So we have a team of grant writers who will provide free assistance to you. And all you need to do is click this button here, and it takes you to a form. And all you have to do is just complete a couple of questions here and tell us about what type of support do you need? When's a good time for you to meet with the grant writer? Have you ever worked on a proposal like this before? So it helps us know how we can best help you, okay? So if that's something that you would like to do, we encourage you to complete stage 1 first, because that way the grant writers can know a little bit about your project. They can know what you're thinking, what you're trying to accomplish, and they can better assist you. So Manny, I know, is putting a bunch of links in the chat for you all. Manny, I'm gonna ask you to drop the grant writer one in there one more time for folks so they know how to get to it. But again, everybody, everything is on the website. So please do use this to your benefit. I have a couple more slides that I'm gonna share, and then I'm gonna take questions. Are we back to the PowerPoint? Can you all see this? Yep, all right, excellent. I have about 5 screens up, so just want to make sure. So here, everybody, you see the graphic of how does it work. When we first started this PB process, we got a lot of questions from people saying, well, I love the idea, but how does this really work? And so we put together an infographic that really walks you through step by step how we envision this process going. And right now, we're really smack dab in this second phase, where you're completing your application, okay? So that's where we are in the process. And this is in the rulebook document that I mentioned to you as well. So if you wanna see a quick and simple version of the whole how does it work, this is a good resource for you. So let's talk a little bit about the application review, right? Who's gonna be reviewing your applications? So for stage 1, everyone, the applications will be reviewed by our team, the Office of Equity. So we are reviewing that first stage 1 application. And I'm gonna just pause here for a moment. Can I see a show of hands, either your real hand or your virtual hand, if you've already completed your stage 1 application? All right, Maria, anybody else? Got their stage 1 in? Okay, Nan, all right. Excellent, excellent. So again, we encourage you to get these in, okay? Oh, and I see, yeah, Erica's giving some love to everybody who's gotten it in. Excellent. So, you know, now's really the time. I feel like this is kind of our crunch time, so to speak, in the application portion of things. So I just want to really encourage everybody to get those applications in. So let's go back to the review though. So that's our stage 1 application. From there, we have stage 2, as I mentioned, and that'll be reviewed by our Office of Equity and by our PB committee. So we put together a committee of community members from across Marin County, representing different ages. I think our youngest member is under 20, and our most senior member is over 70, okay? They represent different ages, different languages, different races and ethnicities, different lived experiences. And so they're really our partners in this work. PB is all about being community-centered, and so we wanted to make sure that we had a number of community partners who could go on this journey with us. So they have been working with us from the very beginning of our PB phase, so our PB process. And so they'll be a part of the review and evaluation phase of the work. From there, everyone, you can also think about it in terms of how else are we going to be reviewing? So I already talked to you about need, feasibility, and impact. And then some other ways for you to think about it include completeness. So have you answered all of the questions that we asked? That's like a basic, right? It's like, did you answer all the questions? Do you address all the parts of the question? Clarity. Is your response clear? Can we really follow what your vision is for this project? Can we understand how you're working in partnership with community members or other organizations? And then content, right? Is it consistent with your other responses? Is it doing what you said you wanted to do? Is it really clear to us how you're going to accomplish this project from beginning to end? And the rulebook has tons of more information about the criteria as well. But I wanted to share this slide with you because it gives you a little more detail on how we'll be evaluating the key attributes of your proposal. So, one is the location, as I mentioned. We're honing in on those 5 communities that I mentioned to you: Marin City, parts of Novato, San Rafael, the Canal, and West Marin. So location is one way that we'll be looking at it and scoring. In addition to that, what's your approach to the project, right? Have you thought that through? What's your work plan look like? For each phase of your project, do you have a clear sense of what you're trying to accomplish? And then with any project, as we all know, things come up, challenges may happen. And so what are your thoughts on how you would address some of those challenges that might emerge? So we're looking for that, right? We're also looking at who does this project benefit and what are the impacts of your project? So for example, it might be youth, it might be single mothers, it might be seniors with disabilities, for example. It could be a number of folks, right? So how are you working with those individuals? How are you partnering with them to accomplish this project? And for us, it's really important that PB isn't something, these projects aren't something that are done to communities, but are instead that are done with communities. So we really want to know how you're partnering with these individuals, with these communities to get this done. Have you worked with them in the past? Is this your first time ever working with, say, single mothers in the Canal, right? So we're looking for that. In addition, everybody, we're looking at the cost of your project. How much money are you requesting? So if you're requesting $250,000 for something that, may more likely cost $25,000, that's something that we're going to be looking at. And so we'll find out a lot of that through the detail in your budget, right? So we have a line item in your budget for you to really articulate what you're going to be spending the money on. And have you thought through all the various costs that you might accrue? And then last but not least, everybody, we're also looking for just these attachments. So do you have a nonprofit partner or do you have a fiscal sponsor partner? And have you uploaded that template that I showed you a moment ago? Do you upload your budget? Did you upload your timeline? So these are all speaking to that completeness of application. So, we understand that for many of us, and as I mentioned, we really want to have new folks apply for this money. We want to engage new voices in this process. And so we want to support you. So as I mentioned, we have grant writers to help you along this journey. But I do encourage you, before reaching out for grant writing assistance, to one, complete your stage 1 application, because that really helps them know how to help you. So that's first. It's just do your stage 1. And do what you can first, right? That's one example of that. It's not just showing up and saying, I have this idea, help me think it through. And they can do that, if that's something that you think you need, but it's oftentimes more effective to come in with a little bit more thought and preparation to the conversation. In addition to that, you can just complete that intake form that Manny put in the link. And so that'll let us know where to route you to which grant writer should we have you work with based on what you include in that form. And then to come prepared. We want you to really maximize your time with the grant writers. And so we want you to be specific about what support you might need. So for example, there might be question 8 in the stage 2. It's just giving you a lot of trouble. You're not sure how to articulate the outcomes that you're seeking to accomplish. or you're hung up on the budget. You know, you haven't really worked with a budget before. How do I do this? What do I need to think about to put this together? So that's the type of thing what I mean when I say be specific. Kind of come ready with what support you think you'll really need from them. And then if you have any accessibility needs, you can let us know that in advance. So that's one of the questions in the intake form. So for example, if you need, you know, a large font when they're working with you, or if you prefer to meet over the phone instead of by email because that's your preferred communication style, let us know that, right? So these are just a couple of tips for how you might best work with the grant writers. So with that, everybody, I know that was, you know, a good amount of information coming at you. So I want to pause here and just see if there are any questions for us around the application. And I'm going to ask you to hold the questions for the voting until just a moment, because we're going to get there in just a hot second. But any questions about the application? And Yanina, I see you first. Go for it.
Hello, everyone. So I have questions about budgeting and transparency. So how do public know where funds exactly will be directed in each project? For example, to avoid situations like nonprofits piggy banking on a grant with no additional, with no additional outcome for community. For example, if someone already has nonprofit and they will apply for a grant using their existing project, and then the money that they will receive, they will just distribute for salaries, for example. Or like, for example, if I would apply for 250K and like 230 of that I will put into my salary and 20 I will put into community. So how do people who vote see where exactly money will go? Because as I see an example, like, right, Vallejo had 7 rounds and Oakland, and they still under 70. So I don't see any positive outcome from that. So how do you track money exactly to prevent this situation? And so we actually see some kind of, change.
Yeah, great question, Yanina. Thank you for lifting that up for us. So we've thought through this as well. And so in that budget template form, it's really asking you to be very clear about where the money is going. And once let's say, for example, you are a winner of the PB grant. Community members say your project is important. They voted for you and you win. After that, we enter into a contract with the winning organization, right? And we have some really clear and some might say rigid processes in place to help us track how that money is being spent. So that detail will come after the fact, right? For us to know how you're using the money. So what you're invoicing to us, what your receipts are indicating to us. So we'll be tracking all of that in partnership with the winners, right? But in terms of the community, which is I think more about your question, Yanina, we will go by the information that you share with us. I mean, we will go by how you say you're using the money. So what we put in front of community members is what you say you're going to be using the money for. So that's the best we can do at this stage. We're going to ask you questions. We're going to go deep into our analysis once we see your stage 2 application and really make sure that you use the money for what you say you're planning to use it for. But that's really what we have to go on, right? So once we enter into a contract with you, though, we are requiring that you do what you say you were going to do, that you use the money for those purposes. And if we find, and I hope that that's not the case, if we find that when you do the reporting, which is every 6 months after you're awarded the money, you have to do a report every 6 months, it lets us know how that money is being spent. So should we find, hypothetically, that that you're not using it the way you said, that'll be a problem, right? And we'll have to sit down and talk about what the issue is, how we can support you in getting back on track, or we might need to rethink our partnership.
So I have one follow-up. So how's the public who will vote, how they will see, do they vote for the project when 230 goes to someone's salary and 20 goes to community, or do they vote for the project where 250 goes to community and like 0 or something little to salaries? How people who will vote, how they will see that?
So we will see that when we look at the budget. So we meaning the Office of Equity and our PB committee. So if a project, to your example, if a project has 20 going to community and $230,000 going to salary or overhead, that project likely won't make it on the ballot. So we're not going to put a project in front of community members that doesn't adhere to the principles and the goals of our process. So once we see your budget, and we're going through it with a fine-tooth comb, I want everybody to know we're really going to be diligent about reviewing these applications. If we find that that's the case, then the project's not going to make it on the ballot. So community members will never even see that particular project anymore. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. That's great.
Great question. Great question. I'm going to go over to Maria.
Those are really good questions. So community members won't be able to see the budgets?
No, we're not allocating, we're not showing that. Because imagine, and I want everybody to put yourselves in the shoes of a community member who's like, I'm excited about PB, but I don't want to get into the ins and outs of somebody's budget. I think I like this particular project. I'm looking at the description of the project. I'm able to do a little more fact finding if I want to. But frankly, most people don't want to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. So that's our job. So we're going to do our due diligence beforehand and make sure that we're putting projects before the community that really are in keeping with what our goals are.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying, Jamila. And I just had another clarification, just to make sure I'm understanding. The money we request, the grant period is going to be for 2 years, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Really important question there. So it's for up to 2 years, everybody. And excuse me. And let's say that you have a project that, every project can't be done in 2 years, right? And we understand that. But we do want to know, what are you going to accomplish in those 2 years using this money, right? And that's what the grant is for. It's not for the long-term sustainability of your organization. It's really about a particular project at a moment in time that we can help you support. Let's go to Nan. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
So just piggybacking on that question, it is a 2-year grant. We're all going to be applying for 2 years of funding.
That's correct. So it's for 2 years of funding.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you. So our grant application revolves around a rich body of evidence that supports the notion that there's a very beneficial role that pets play in human mental and physical well-being. We know that. And we launched a pet safety net program in 2018 and served 259 under-resourced pet guardians. We're predicting to serve between 1,800 and 2,000 next fiscal year. And our objective is to keep humans and their pets together as opposed to having them surrender to our shelter. So my question is about the partnership and MOU documentation that's required in stage 2, because we have so many partnerships. We've been around for well over 100 years. We're one of Marin's oldest nonprofits, and we're just kind of trying to circle around how to nail down the partnership aspect of it. I mean, we partner with 52 regional veterinary practices for low income, veterinary care for the pets of under-resourced people, Vivalon, By the Bay, Health, you name it. Marin social human services organizations, police departments, on and on and on, the referrals that come to us. And we make bi-directional referrals that go out as well. So we're just having a real hard time trying to figure out how many partnership letters can we submit? Just 2?
Great question. Great question. So I would encourage you to think about, Nan, who are the most critical partners to accomplishing your project objectives? So you mentioned you have 52 partners. Are all 52 really critical for us to understand who's going to be doing the work with you? You can mention in your partnership letter that you have a host of other partners, but maybe it's these top 3 that are of the utmost importance that we know about, who are really going to be helping you accomplish the objectives in your project plan. So that's one way for you to think about it, Nan. Another way to think about it is, are these partners working within our communities of concern? Meaning, are they working in our priority communities? That may be another way to help you frame your partnership agreements. So those are 2 suggestions that I would recommend to you to think about. We don't need to see all 52 partners, right? That's a bit much, but we do think it's critical to know who are maybe your top 3 partners involved in doing the day-to-day.
And does the partner have to be another nonprofit, or could it be a for-profit partner?
Great question. It can absolutely be a for-profit partner. We're working across sectors, you know, and so it might be a business. It might be a chamber of commerce. It might be a foundation. You know, there's a number of different partners that exist in our ecosystem. And so we're not precluding you from working with anyone. We just want to know who are your top partners, basically. Great
Thank you.
question. Great
Thank you.
question on that. Yeah. And I also just want to mention that there is space to list, you know, who your partners are, both in the stage 2 application and in that partnership letter agreement. So we can get a real sense of the network of partners that exist. Great stuff there. Let's go to Samantha, and then I see Amber.
Thank you. And I'm really sorry if I missed this, but I am curious exactly about if there is a project for a specific region. So I work in West Marin now, and it's very different than my experiences here in San Rafael. Is the voting going to be open to all of Marin County, or will West Marin vote on that project? I'm getting a little confused on that.
Okay, fair question, Samantha. Good to have you here today. We're going to come to that in just a moment. I'm going to ask that we hold that until we get into the voting.
Okay.
But make sure we don't forget. And if we do, then please do bring it back up. But I got you. So we'll come back to that. Okay. Voting is our next topic. Let's go to Amber.
Thanks. I was hoping for clarification on question 9 in the stage 1 application. It asks us to describe 1 or 2 of the community ideas from the PB community ideas map. Should I submit an idea and then reference that in our application, or is it meant to actually list a couple of other unrelated ideas that may have some similarities? I'm just not exactly sure how to answer that question.
Great question. So everybody, I'm going to take you to back to our map here that I showed you. And this is what that question is referring to. It's saying, of all the ideas that we've heard so far from community members, how does your project relate to any of those ideas, right? So I'm hard pressed to think that you can't find maybe one that's related, 1 or 2. And it's a way for us to just demonstrate that you've listened, or you've seen, or you've been a part of understanding what's important to your fellow community members, right? So you can kind of go through this list, Amber, and see, is there anything that connects? And let's say there's not, right? Let's say there's not. Well, you could simply go to share my project idea, and you can add that idea there, right? And because we also just want to begin generating this list of ideas that we'll share, not only for PB, but I want you all to know that we'll also be sharing this with our other departments, because we understand that not everything can be funded through our PB grant, right? We have $2.5 million, and there's probably like $100 million, if not more, worth of ideas here. So we don't want it to stop at this phase. Let's say you don't make it onto the ballot. But what we will do is we'll share these ideas with our fellow departments so that they can know, hey, for example, Parks and Rec, we're going to say community gardens in the canal, particularly for recently incarcerated people, is really important to communities. What can we do to support that? Are there grants available that your department can be a part of, right? For housing related questions, we're going to share with our community development agency and say, we got some really great ideas around tenant protection in Marin City, right? What can we do to support that? Is there any way that we can align our current work with some of these community-led ideas? So that's the goal of that ideas database, Amber and everybody, is for us to get a sense of what's important to folks. And then how do we connect them to money? If not through PB, through other government sources. So that would be my suggestion, Amber, is that you go through and you look at what other people have mentioned. And if you don't see anything related to your idea, then you can add a project.
Great, thank you.
Sure thing, great question. Anybody else, other questions coming up for you around application part of our process? These are great questions. Okay, well, I'm going to keep us moving, but I'm going to feel free to, reach out or put something in the chat if it comes up for you after. But we're going to keep going and get into the voting part of our process. All right, So voting, everybody. So after these applications come through, we will review them, as I mentioned, our Office of Equity team, as well as our PB committee. And let's say hypothetically, everybody, hypothetically, we get 100 applications in. We're not going to put 100 applications on the ballot, 100 projects on the ballot, because that's too many for a community member to realistically go through and review. So it's our job to hone that down, right? To review and evaluate, to get to say maybe 20 projects will go on the ballot. And I'm just speaking hypothetically right now. We don't know how many projects will be on the ballot just yet. But it likely won't be more than 20, because that's really too much for community members to have to go through and evaluate on their own. We don't want it to be so onerous that people are like, I don't even want to do this, right? So part of our job is to get this down to a manageable number of projects to go on the ballot. And then from there, people will vote, right? And so what are some factors that might influence what goes on the ballot? So for us, it's about geography is one factor. So we don't want to have all the projects be from, say, West Marin, right? Because that's not our goal. Our goal is to spread this money around to those communities that I mentioned to you. So we want to have diversity across our target communities. So that's something that's really going to be important as we think about what gets on the ballot. Another factor is how much money is being requested. So we have these grant tiers, and you can see it on the slide here. We have 10,000 to 25,000. We have 26,000 to 75,000, 76,000 to 125,000, and then 126,000 to about 250,000, right? So we don't want to have all projects on the ballot that are 126,000 to $250,000, because that means that these bigger projects are absorbing all of the money. But there may be some really great projects that only need $10,000 to be successful. So we're going to mix it up across the tiers, okay? In addition to that, we're looking at the project categories. So if you recall in the application or on the ideas tool, we have about 10 categories on there. So for example, it's parks and recreation is a category. Let's see here, jobs and economic development is a category. Climate change and disaster preparedness is a category. So we want to have a range of projects that represent different categories on the ballot as well. So these are all types of things that will influence what actually makes it onto that community ballot. And then you might be wondering, well, who can vote? So we're looking for people who live, work, own a business, or attend school in Marin County. They have to be 14 years of age or older. And we're doing this because we really want to engage younger folks in this work, in this process. We've gone out to schools, we've gone out to colleges as well. And, you know, our young people have some really fantastic ideas and solutions for how to address community issues. And we want them to be a part of it, okay? So they can also propose projects. So anyone who's 14 years or older can propose a project, for example, right? So that's really important. We're also not looking at documentation status. So really it's open to anyone who's a community member here in Marin County. It's really important. And I had a couple of questions that were put to me a moment ago about from some of you. And so one question I think Samantha was asking, can anyone vote for any particular project in any community? And yes is the answer. So just because a project's in Marin City, anybody can vote for that project, right? So no matter where you live, work, or play, you can vote on any project on the ballot, okay? So that's something to keep in mind, that it's really a county-wide process. I had two other questions that escaped me at the moment, but I'm going to come to those. I'm going to ask those folks who had the questions about voting to come back on off mute and to ask them again. But I also wanted to let you know that we'll be both in person for voting. So here's an example of us at the Sausalito Marin School District at one of the events that were held recently. So we plan to be in person, right? So we'll have voting locations in our target communities that I mentioned to you: Marin City, Novato, San Rafael Canal, and West Marin. So we'll have locations there, and we'll partner with organizations. So we might have it, for example, at the Novato Library, maybe one of the locations. We might have it at the Marin City Senior Center, might be another location, right? So we're going to partner with groups to help us with these voting locations. We also will be online. So just like that online tool I showed you a moment ago, we'll also have an online platform. So everybody doesn't want to come out and vote in person, right? We get that. And so we want to make it easy for folks to vote online as well. We're doing our best to have a really rigorous system so that it's one person, one vote. So we'll have some mechanisms in place, some guardrails, so to speak, to make sure that people aren't double dipping, right? So we're putting some mechanisms in place to know that Amber's voting one time, Nan's voting one time, right? And so that's our goal here. So that's a little bit about the voting process, but I want to just keep going, and then we can come back to if there are any other questions on the voting in just a second. So after that, all the projects will be voted on, we'll tally the votes, and from there, it's about whatever the community decides, those projects will be funded, right? So let's say those 20 projects that were on the ballot, maybe 10 of them will ultimately be funded. And we'll give the money, we'll enter into a contract with that community member or that partner organization, and begin the funding process. And you have from the date it was awarded until about 2 years to show your results, to use the money. I see some hands coming up, and I'm going to come to them in just a moment, okay? And then from there, it's about implementing the projects, right? And this is where we're most excited. This is where the work really begins. And so here's an example of a community out in, I want to say, San Diego, that went through a PV process, and their project was a mural in this case. And they got together a number of community partners working with schools, working with local homeless organizations, and they designed this mural. And now they have this beautiful artwork to look at and to enrich the lives of the community members who live there. So that's ultimately what we want to get to, everybody. We want to have outcomes to show after we wrap our process. So I'm sure there are more questions. I see some hands up. I'm going to put my screen down and go to the questions here. I'm going to go to Nan and then Leon, and then I think Samantha may have had a question. Nan?
Thank you. I have two questions. Let's say in theory, I ask you for $100,000, and in the process of voting, I get a lot of votes for my idea. Would you fund us for half of that and say, well, we can't give you the full 100, but based on whatever criteria, we'd like to award you 50,000? Will you do that? Will you give lesser amounts?
Great question, Nan. Great question. So as I mentioned, we have $2.5 million, and we anticipate getting a ton of applications in here. And so we do anticipate needing to reach out to folks and say, hey, you know, in order to make it on the ballot, you know, we only have, say, $250,000 worth of money left. And we have 2 projects that, you know, could potentially go on this ballot. Would you be willing to scale your project down differently and have $100,000, and this other group can get, you know, that 150, for example? So yes, that's something that we were anticipating doing. We're going to work with you. You know, we don't want this to be a zero-sum game, but instead it's what can we do to make sure that you're getting some money to do this really important work.
Yeah,
right?
we'll take anything. And then my second question is, you know, as I mentioned earlier, we're a really old nonprofit, and we have a small but mighty marketing and communications team. And so, you know, if we make it into the process for the voting, we're in a really advantageous position to tell our constituents, hey, please vote for us. And it seems like that kind of gives an unfair advantage to organizations like mine, who could reach out to 800 volunteers and thousands of constituents who are donors to support us in this, whereas one of these other competitors here may have a really great idea, but they just don't have the robust, you know, ability to reach out, you know, and get their vote. So how does that work? How is that fair? Or what do you have? What comment do you have to make about that?
Yeah, I appreciate that. This comes up in every one of our workshops, and it's a really important question that you're lifting up for all of us here today, man. So you're absolutely right, and I think very much like, say, a presidential election, it's often based on who you know, how many people know of you, your own popularity, how deep are your pockets, right? So there's some aspect of this in PB. We're not immune to that being the case, but we're doing all that we can do to level the playing field. So we'll be providing outreach materials for our applicants to go out and spread the word to their constituents. We'll be providing a booklet of information, very much like what you get when when it's time to vote for, say, a number of ballots on an initiative in your county. So we'll be describing what the project is, how much is being requested, what's that description of all the great things that this project will accomplish. We'll be doing a lot of the outreach on the behalf of all of the projects that get on the ballot. So we'll do what we can do. However, it's also incumbent upon the applicant to drum up support, to mobilize. And some of you may be in a better position than others. We understand that. We'll take that into account as we think about what goes on the ballot. In some cases, we'll do all that we can, but we do really expect and hope that the applicants will do what they can to build up their kind of mobilization machine, so to speak, to get the word out, right? So we'll have events, for example, or Project Expo, where we'll have all the applicants that have made it onto the ballot come out to a Project Expo, and community members can then go and ask questions. What's this project about the bike lanes in Novato? I want to learn more about it. How is it really going to make my life better? Is it going to make my son safer on his way to school, for example? So people will be able to reach out and touch to get a better sense of what the project's all about. I think that's another way that we're trying to really shore up that level of the playing field. In addition to that, I mentioned that we're going to have events in community, so in those target communities. So if it's that bike lane project in Novato, we're going to have an event in Novato where people can go and vote directly, right? So we're going to do a lot of micro targeting of the communities that are our highest priority for this process. So those are some of the things that we're going to do, but we certainly welcome feedback that others may have about how do you think that we can rectify this issue. I think that's something that, what I love about PB is that it's direct democracy in action, and it also helps us question our own political system. Is it fair that just because so-and-so is more popular, that they have deeper pockets, that they're likely gonna end up coming out on top? No, it's not. But what do we do about that? How do we address it? So it's really kind of holding up a mirror to our broader political systems. But nonetheless, we're doing all that we can, but we're very much open to suggestions about how do we address that issue, right? I'm gonna go to Leon.
Thank you. So there's a maximum amount of 2.5 million, and you have the different individual funding categories. In other words, 0 to 25,000, 26, blah blah. And I'm wondering how you balance that out, because you have voters who really aren't looking at that, are they? And one other thing that the Marin History Museum would be very happy to share in the proceeds that any other group gets if you need to even things out. So
yeah, no, great
so
question.
we'll be happy to receive it.
Yeah, thank you for that, Leon. So what we're asking people to do in the voting is we're not asking them to do any math, so it's not a matter of we have this $2.5 million and I'm going to vote for up to $2.5 million worth of projects. Instead, we're doing it more so on rank your top 3 projects, right? Rank your top 5 projects that are on the ballot. And that's how we'll determine which projects ultimately get the money. So we're not asking people to do the math on that because we think it's going to be really too complicated for folks in real time, myself included. It's like, who wants to do that? Instead, so it's more of select your top 3, select your top 5, and we'll do that across all of the ballots that we receive, and whichever ones get the highest number of votes is the one that will move forward. Thanks for that question, Leon. Let's go over to Samantha.
Thank you, Jamila. You kind of touched on it a little bit. So depending on how many options there are, that's how you'll choose, rank or choose a few of the options, right? So it's
Exactly.
not like you only have to choose. Your one vote doesn't mean only for one project. Your one vote will be whatever you decide on, 5 or 3 or whatever.
You said it. That's exactly right. So if it's 3 or 5, that's depending on how many are on the ballot, right? That's why we can't say right now, because we don't know how many projects are going to make it on the ballot. But it'll ultimately be pick your top 3, right? You don't just pick one. Pick your top 3. Pick your top 5. Which ones you think will have the greatest impact for you and your community?
Absolutely. And then my other, kind of comment is I've grown up in San Rafael my whole life, and I've been working out in West Marin for 3 months. And I'm really getting a sense for how people don't really, I'm just even learning what even constitutes West Marin. There's so many different communities. It's so rural. There's a lot of different need. And so I really worry about the fairness of having people vote on something when you may not even know where that community is or have been there before. And so I guess that's just a comment in the sense that I wish that it would have been each kind of geographic community voting for themselves, which ones they thought would be better, because you just don't know what it's like in some of these different areas to be able to say, oh, I think that that's a good idea, if that makes sense.
It does. It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. And we'll take that into account, Sam. We haven't gotten to the voting stage yet. And so we are talking with our partners in other communities as to how they've gone about that particular issue, to see what's working in, say, Vallejo, what's working in a community like Oakland, in a community like where have you. And so, we're open to that feedback. And this is part of why we're having these sessions. It's not just to give you information, but to hear your concerns, your ideas about how the process should evolve.
Yeah, and I have one more comment really quick.
Sure.
I also, as a lifelong resident of Marin County, and this came up when we had that big meeting at Embassy Suites, it's like, how do you also ensure representation of ideas from people of color and the leadership of people of color when we have just a lot of white people that work in the nonprofits and the organization? So how are you taking that into consideration, and what could be done in the future to have just like more BIPOC-led initiatives, projects, organizations, because we don't want to continue to contribute to a charity mindset, and so I also worry about that. And that's all for today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. Good stuff. And yeah, we did cover that a little bit in our February forum. And so, one thing that we've done is in the application, and I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that stage too, but we're asking questions about who's the leadership of your organization. How long have you been in existence? We're also looking for, first-time grant recipients, right? Have you been through this kind of grant writing game, for lack of a better phrase, before? And if so, you probably would be more likely to receive a grant because you know how to go through the ins and outs of it. So we're asking questions to get a sense of who is our applicant. Who are they? Who do they serve as well is another question that we're asking. What are the communities that are intended to benefit from this project? Are they communities of color? Are they lower income communities, right? So these are questions that we're trying to suss out in the application. And we think we've done a fair job at this stage of asking questions to give us a well-rounded picture of who the applicant really is and who the project will support. So thanks for that. Good question there. I'm going to go to Maria, and then I see a hand from Janice.
I know we're going to be running out of time, but I'm just curious to know what strategies is the Office of Equity going to use to let community members know about voting?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks, Samantha. Appreciate you joining. So we will be using a variety of strategies, right? So it'll be in person. So I kind of consider it high touch to high tech, right? So we'll be in person at a grassroots level, very much like we did the ideas collection phase, right? So we'll be going to libraries, we'll be going to community centers and spreading the word. I mentioned, however, though, we're a team of 2.5 people, Okay, so I also want to be very real about our team's bandwidth. And so we're relying on our broader county departments to be spreading the word about PB as well. We have a public information office as well that we'll be partnering with. So it'll be in-person, high-touch outreach to the extent that we can. In addition to that, it's also online. So we'll be using social media. We'll be doing videos to spread the word. We will be doing all types of ads and things in papers and on radio. And so we'll be kind of hitting the street, so to speak, to let people know. But we also want you all to be our ambassadors to the extent that you can. You know, PB is about participating. That's the operative word. And so we're looking to you all to really help us in making sure that we're drawing connections. You know, it's not your responsibility, but it's all of our jobs really. We all have a role to play in making PB successful. So we hope that you would be interested in doing that so that we can have a better process at the end of the day. So great question there. I think I saw, was it Amber? Maybe Amber, did you have a question? No? Okay. Anybody else? We're bumping against our time here. I want to be respectful. Oh, Janice, it was Janice. Yes, go for it, Janice.
Sorry, it's very simple. I think the first part, and then I have a second part. The letter that is the partner letter, can that be, can we make our own based on this letter, or do we have to use this particular letter with our partner?
Great question. So we're asking that you use these templates, right? Because we don't want, so for example, we have a budget template. We don't want to have 100 different types of budgets coming at us. Right. So that's why we develop these templates. So you can add on to the template though. You can feel free to add more content to it if that's something that you'd like to do. But the structure of it, the content of it, we ask you to be true to that, right? So you can add on and adapt it, but the basics need to be there.
Okay, I appreciate that. And after the award, I'm doing positive, envisioning here of we're getting the award, and
that's right, manifestation.
2 years down the road, we have to report our outcomes or progress or whatever. What is the auditing process?
Great question, Janice. So we have actually, it's not just 2 years down the line. We'll have a reporting that takes place once you get the award and then every 6 months after that, right?
Okay.
But we're very mindful of this not being an onerous, grant making process. So it'll be streamlined. We're not going to ask you to tell us all the ins and outs, but we are going to ask you some key questions every 6 months to help us know how you're doing. And then what support do you need to move towards deeper implementation? So it'll be every 6 month reporting cycle. We'll also have check-ins, so it won't just be written, it'll be in person, it'll be, us looking at each other face to face and really assessing how things are going. We wanna know so that we can get better for the next PB cycle. Great question. I see some stuff in the chat here real quick, and then I know we're over time, everybody. So yes, we will be recording. The session is being recorded. And we will post it onto our website shortly. We're just going to get the closed captioning added onto it, and then it'll be available shortly. So we anticipate kind of early next week, the bulk of these sessions will be uploaded. Okay. I have maybe one more slide, but first I'm going to go to Amber, and then we'll go ahead and sign off. Amber.
Just a quick question. If we have follow-up questions, to not take too much more time here, can we email one of you?
Sure. Yeah, let's get to that. Great question, Amber. So I'm going to show my slide here, everybody, and then we're going to wrap it up here for the day. Thanks for hanging in there with us. So again, this is our 5-part process. We will have one more application workshop. We've actually changed the date because we've gotten a lot more participation in the evening. And so we wanted to just make sure that our folks who are working during the day can participate. So the last date is May 17th from 5:30 to 7. And we're going to focus in on the stage 2 application for this workshop. Okay, so if you have more questions about your stage 2, I encourage you to come to that particular workshop, May 17th, 5:30 to 7. We'll send out another e-blast, another announcement on that. So, and it'll be on our website too. And then just a couple of quick reminders, everybody. Stage 1 is due May 10th, okay? So it's right around the corner. Go ahead and get those in, okay? It's really straightforward, and it'll just make your life easier, I think, to get you ready for stage 2, which is due on May 31st, so the end of the month, right? And we're gonna hold pretty firm to these deadlines, everybody. So please do your best to get it in. We do have grant writing support, as I mentioned. And so you can go ahead and click the link that Manny put in the chat. It's also on our website, and they will connect you and they'll reach out to you and get on the books for some meetings with them. To your question, Amber, if you have additional questions, ideas, comments, please reach out. We're at equity@marincounty.org, and we're happy to help you through it. So we want you to be successful in this work, everybody. We want to be successful as well. And with that, I just want to say thank you all so much for joining. We appreciate your time here. We wish you all the best. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. All the best. Be well. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care.